says today, shut it down. Is that the future of the WNBA? Getting shut down, closed for good. See you later. Thank you. Come again. The owners doing their best in negotiations. The owners seem like they're coming to the negotiation tables with.
The WNBA is about to collapse, and the players are the ones pulling the trigger. With just days left before the January 9th deadline, the WNBA Players Association just authorized a strike vote, and the owners have made it crystal clear this is their final extension. No more negotiations. No more chances. This isn't clickbait anymore. This is a legitimate crisis being discussed by former sports executives who have negotiated billion-dollar deals. And what's happening behind the scenes is absolutely wild, because while everyone's focused on the money fight, there's something way bigger at play here. 2 of the 7 people who now control whether the WNBA lives or dies have equity stakes in Project B, the competing league that's waiting in the wings with serious investor money. Think about that for a second. The people deciding whether to blow up the WNBA have financial incentives for it to fail. This is the most insane conflict of interest in sports history, and somehow nobody's talking about it.
As the calendar approaches 2026, uncertainty reigns over when a new collective bargaining agreement will get done between the WNBA and the Players Association. The Players Union has continued to publicly express displeasure with the state of negotiations with the player body last week, authorizing the union's executive committee to call a strike when necessary, a move the Players Association called an unavoidable response to the state of negotiations with the WNBA.
Here's what's actually on the table, and why the players are about to make the biggest mistake in women's sports history. The owners proposed quadrupling maximum salaries. Quadrupling. They want to pay an average player around $500,000 a year, in a league that's never turned a profit, ever. They're boosting minimum salaries significantly, improving benefits, upgrading working conditions. But there's one sticking point the players refuse to budge on, and it's so unreasonable it's actually insane. Revenue sharing. They want a percentage of league revenue regardless of profitability. Let me explain why this is completely delusional. Revenue sharing works when there's actual profit to share. The WNBA loses money every single year, so the players are essentially saying we want a percentage of revenue while you owners absorb 100% of the losses. They want the upside without any of the downside risk. That's not revenue sharing, that's extortion with a basketball.
Semantics at this point. A decision on whether to strike now is not in the hands of the 150 plus players, but up to the 7-player executive committee. How crazy is that? The 150 players have now left all of their leverage in the hands of 7 ladies, 2 of which have a tremendous amount of gain if the WNBA folds, one of which is in a competing league called Project.
Here's where this gets absolutely wild. Nneka Ogwumike, the Players Association president, told ESPN that the strike authorization is about giving themselves maximum leverage. Maximum leverage. In a league where both sides can walk away with 48 hours notice. Do you see the problem here? It's leverage without teeth. It's like threatening to burn down a house when the other person is already looking at real estate listings. The owners have been running a charity operation for 28 years. They don't need this headache. Meanwhile, every single WNBA player is technically a free agent right now. No contracts, no binding agreements, nothing. And if you're a well-capitalized investor looking to start a competing league, this is your golden window. Project B already exists, they have serious money, they're promising equity to players, and guess what? 2 members of that 7-person executive committee controlling the strike decision have equity stakes in Project B. The people voting to potentially destroy the WNBA have financial incentives for its biggest competitor to succeed.
Look at what's going on. Ogwumike told ESPN she sees Thursday's vote as an opportunity for a strike to be an option if negotiations don't progress. The WNBA, meanwhile, has repeatedly said in statements that the league strongly disagrees with the WNBA Players Association's characterization of the current state of negotiations. I disagree too. I think the owners are doing more than enough. I think the owners are bending themselves into pretzels trying to get this deal done. I think the owners are doing a lot. The players they don't want to budge. Interesting. When asked what factors would prompt the executive committee to consider pursuing a strike, Ogwumike said, "It's kind of early to even..."
Listen to this quote from Ogwumike when asked what would trigger an actual strike. She said they'll decide 2 days before the deadline whether to strike. 2 days. But then she said something even more revealing. Aside from revenue sharing, she's not entirely sure what factors could lead them to actually strike. Translation: everything else in the deal is acceptable. The salaries, the benefits, the working conditions, all fine. The only deal breaker is getting a cut of revenue in a league that's bled money for nearly 3 decades. Dave Sampson, former Marlins executive who helped negotiate complex ownership situations, laid it out perfectly. This is the moment. Every WNBA player is a free agent. If Project B wants to make their move, if they want to poach talent and create chaos, this is their shot. And Adam Silver knows it. The owners know it. But the players are acting like they hold all the cards when they're actually playing Russian roulette with their own careers.
Take your ball and go home, and then cry that the big bad owners in the WNBA aren't giving you what you want. How sad, how embarrassing. Now we have Dave Sampson over here, who was on the Dan Le Batard show, former executive for the Florida Marlins, helped them move with the new stadium with Miami. Let's take a look here what he had to say, saying this could be the end of the WNBA if the players continue to get greedy.
This is the moment. If you had any ability to invest and you wanted to start a league to compete with the WNBA, this is the time.
This is the time. All the players are free agents. It's hot. It's hot. There's no CBA currently. This would be the time to start up a new league, get your ducks in a row, and then end the WNBA.
Now here's the part that's going to make you angry. Dan Le Batard suggested it would be culturally unpopular for the WNBA to fold. Culturally unpopular with who exactly? The 46,000 people who watched a Las Vegas Aces game on NBA TV. The 78,000 who caught an Atlanta Dream game. This league went 15 years without a single game reaching 1 million viewers until Caitlin Clark showed up. 15 years. The WNBA has operated at a deficit every single year since its founding. The NBA has subsidized it for nearly 3 decades like a parent paying for their adult child's apartment. At some point, even the most patient investors look at the books and ask themselves, is this ever going to work? And here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. The players want to be paid like they're in a profitable major sports league, but you don't get paid based on what league you're in geographically. You get paid based on the revenue your league actually generates. MLS players don't make Premier League salaries. That's not how markets work. That's not how any of this works.
As what you're saying, how probable
Unpopular to who? The 46,000 old jokes?
is that?
It'll be unpopular if the WNBA folds. Unpopular to who? To the large majority.
Damn, unpopular to who? To the 50,000 people that catch a Las Vegas Aces game on NBA TV, unpopular to them? Unpopular to who? To the 78,000 people that catch an Atlanta Dream game on NBA TV, unpopular.
But wait, it gets worse. The expansion team model right now looks less like sustainable growth and more like a Ponzi scheme. You bring in new investors at inflated valuations to pay back the old investors who have been bleeding cash for years. The Golden State Valkyries paid $50 million for an expansion slot. Toronto paid the same. That money goes to existing owners who have been operating at losses since day one. But what happens when those new owners realize they didn't buy into a growth story? They bought into a charity case with a basketball. What happens when the next round of expansion cities looks at the actual financials and says no thanks? The players seem to believe the momentum from last season represents a permanent shift. They think the sold-out arenas for Indiana Fever games and the playoff rating spikes mean the league has turned a corner. But strip out Caitlin Clark's games and what are the real numbers? League average attendance without Fever games was barely different from previous years. TV ratings for non-Clark games remained in the basement. One player created the illusion of growth, and now the entire player body wants to be paid as if that growth is permanent and league-wide.
Better living, go make it.
Go do it. I agree. I absolutely agree. And that goes what Rudy has been saying. Shout out to Rudy coming out of the podcast. That goes what Rudy's been saying. You don't like what they're paying you at UFC? Well, then go fight bare knuckle. Go fight Bellator. If you don't like what you're getting paid here, go somewhere else and get paid better over there. if you're working at Home Depot and you love that environment and you want to be around that type of people, you want to be around giving services to that type of worker, well, you know, if you don't like the pay there, go see what they're paying you at Lowe's. And then maybe go to Lowe's. Go see what they could pay you at Harbor Freight, and maybe go to Harbor Freight. People change jobs.
Here's what the players fundamentally don't understand about leverage, and this is going to be their downfall. Leverage requires the other side to need you more than you need them. In the NBA, that's absolutely true. The owners need LeBron James and Steph Curry because those players generate billions in revenue. The product doesn't exist without them. But in the WNBA, the owners have been running a charity operation for 28 years. They don't need this league. They want it to succeed, sure, but these NBA owners have profitable franchises and other investments. The WNBA is a passion project that's starting to feel like a migraine. Meanwhile, the players need the WNBA desperately. Without it, they're playing overseas for less money and worse conditions, or their hoping project B actually materializes into something sustainable, which is far from guaranteed. So when the players authorize a strike, they're essentially threatening to destroy the thing they need most. It's like an employee threatening to quit when they're already getting paid more than the company can afford and there are no other jobs available. And get this, the owners proposed a deal that would make WNBA players among the highest-paid women's professional athletes in the world. $500,000 average salary in a league that loses money. And the players said no, we want revenue sharing. Revenue sharing in a league that loses money means you're demanding a percentage of revenue while the owners absorb 100% of the losses. How is that fair? How is that even logical? If the players want revenue sharing, they should also accept loss sharing. Take your percentage of revenue in good years, accept pay cuts in bad years. That's how revenue sharing actually works in a real business partnership. But they want the upside without the downside. They want to be treated like owners without taking on any owner risk. They want equity without investment, profit without loss, reward without responsibility. Here's the kicker. January 9th is coming fast. The owners have made their final offer. The players have authorized a strike. And somewhere in the background, Project B is watching this entire negotiation with great interest, ready to swoop in and offer contracts to free agents if the WNBA collapses. This isn't a negotiation anymore. It's a game of chicken, and the side that thinks they have more leverage might be about to find out they've been driving toward a cliff the entire time. If you were a WNBA owner who's lost money for 28 straight years, who just offered to quadruple player salaries in a league that doesn't generate enough revenue to cover current salaries, and the players responded by threatening to strike unless you give them a percentage of revenue you don't have, would you keep negotiating? Or would you cut your losses and walk away? So there you have it. The WNBA is teetering on the edge of collapse. The players are demanding the impossible, and the people making decisions have conflicts of interest that should terrify every basketball fan. This isn't just about money anymore. This is about whether women's professional basketball survives in America, and the players might be about to negotiate themselves right out of existence. The owners have been patient for nearly 3 decades, but patience has limits, and we might be about to find out what happens when those limits get crossed. Here's my question for you, drop it in the comments. Do you think the players actually have leverage here, or are they about to destroy their own league? If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening behind the scenes, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell because January 9th is going to be absolutely wild. I'll see you in the next one. But before you go running to the comments, let me tell you what's happening right now that the mainstream sports media is completely ignoring. Because while everyone's focused on this January 9th deadline, there are backroom conversations happening that could reshape women's professional sports forever. And I've been talking to people close to these negotiations who are telling me things that will blow your mind. First off, let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody wants to address. Caitlin Clark, the one player who single-handedly created the illusion that the WNBA had turned a corner. You know what she's not doing right now? She's not publicly supporting the strike. She's not tweeting about revenue sharing. She's not joining the chorus of players demanding ownership give them a piece of revenue that doesn't exist. Why? Because she understands something the other players don't. Her value transcends the WNBA. If this league collapses tomorrow, Caitlin Clark will be fine. Nike will create opportunities for her. International leagues will throw money at her. She could probably start her own exhibition tour and sell more tickets than half the WNBA teams. But here's the thing that should terrify the players' union. If Caitlin Clark decides the WNBA drama isn't worth it and takes her talents elsewhere, what happens to those attendance numbers they're so proud of? What happens to those TV ratings they think represent permanent growth? And this brings me to something absolutely insane that's happening behind closed doors. Sources are telling me that certain WNBA owners are actually hoping the players strike. Not because they want to hurt women's basketball, but because a strike would give them the legal cover to dissolve player contracts and restructure the entire league from scratch. Think about it. If the players strike, the owners can claim breach of contract, void all existing agreements, and potentially restart with a completely new economic model. They could bring in new players at market rates, implement performance-based pay structures, and eliminate the guaranteed contracts that have been bleeding money for years. The players think they're using the strike as leverage, but they might actually be handing the owners a legal pathway to everything they've wanted to do but couldn't because of existing contracts. Here's where this gets really wild. I've been digging into Project B, this competing league that's supposedly waiting in the wings. Turns out it's not just some pipe dream with ambitious investors. They've been quietly meeting with arena operators, television executives, and yes, current WNBA players. Their business model is completely different. Instead of the traditional franchise system, they're proposing a revenue-sharing model where players actually become equity partners in the league itself. Sounds great, right? But here's the catch. Players would have to invest their own money up front. They'd get equity, but they'd also share in the losses if the league fails. It's exactly what the WNBA players say they want, except with the actual risk that comes with ownership. And guess what? Most of the players demanding revenue sharing from the WNBA suddenly get very quiet when you mention putting their own money at risk. But here's the part that's going to make you question everything you think you know about this situation. The WNBA owners aren't just dealing with player demands. They're dealing with pressure from the NBA itself. Adam Silver has been incredibly supportive of the WNBA publicly, but privately, there are NBA owners who are getting tired of subsidizing a league that shows no signs of profitability. The NBA has pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into the WNBA over nearly 3 decades. At what point does that stop being an investment and start being pure charity? And here's the kicker. Some NBA owners are starting to ask whether that money could be better spent on other initiatives. Youth basketball programs, international expansion, technology development. The opportunity cost of keeping the WNBA alive is getting harder to justify to shareholders and investors. Now let me tell you about a conversation that happened last week that nobody's reporting on. A prominent sports business executive, someone who's negotiated deals worth billions, was asked what he would do if he were advising the WNBA owners right now. His response was stunning. He said the owners should let the players strike, use the work stoppage to conduct a comprehensive review of the league's financial model, and if the numbers don't add up, fold the league entirely. Not restructure it. Not find new investors, fold it. His reasoning: sometimes the most responsible thing you can do as a business owner is admit when something isn't working and stop throwing good money after bad. The WNBA has had 28 years to find profitability. At some point, continued losses aren't a temporary setback, they're a fundamental flaw in the business model. Here's what's really going to shock you. There are WNBA players who privately agree with this assessment. Not publicly because that would be career suicide, but in private conversations, some players have admitted that the league's financial situation is unsustainable. They know the revenue-sharing demands are unrealistic. They know the owners have been incredibly generous with an offer to quadruple salaries. But they're trapped by the players' union leadership that's painted this as an all-or-nothing battle. These players want to accept the owner's offer and get back to playing basketball, but they can't break ranks without facing backlash from their teammates and union leadership. So they're stuck supporting demands they know are unreasonable because the alternative is being labeled a traitor to the cause. Let me paint you a picture of what January 9th might actually look like, because the scenarios being discussed are wild. Scenario 1, the players strike. The owners immediately announce they're suspending league operations indefinitely, and Project B swoops in with offers to the top 20 players in the league. Scenario 2, the players blink at the last minute accept the owner's offer, but the damage to relationships is so severe that several owners start looking for exit strategies. Scenario 3, A compromise gets reached, but it's so financially unsustainable that the league collapses within 2 years anyway. Notice what's missing from all these scenarios. A happy ending where everyone gets what they want and the WNBA thrives. That's because the math doesn't work. You can't have revenue sharing in a league that doesn't generate revenue. You can't pay players like they're in a profitable major sports league when you're not in a profitable major sports league. Here's something that's going to make the players really uncomfortable. The owners have been running financial projections on what the WNBA would look like without its highest-paid players, without the max contract players who are leading the revenue-sharing demands. And you know what they found? The financial picture actually improves. Younger players, draft picks, international prospects who are hungry and willing to play for reasonable salaries while building the league. The owners could potentially run a more sustainable operation by letting the expensive veteran players walk and rebuilding with talent that fits the league's actual economic reality. The players think they have leverage because they believe they're irreplaceable. But in a league that loses money, expensive players aren't assets, they're liabilities. And here's the most insane part of this entire situation. The timing couldn't be worse for the players. We're heading into an economic environment where discretionary spending is getting tighter, where entertainment budgets are shrinking, where even profitable sports leagues are seeing attendance and viewership pressures. The WNBA players have chosen this moment, when the broader economy is uncertain and consumer spending is down, to demand massive increases in compensation from a league that's never made money. It's like demanding a raise during a recession while working for a company that's already losing money. The tone deafness is staggering. But wait, there's more. The international implications of a WNBA collapse would be massive. European leagues, Asian leagues, Australian leagues are all watching this situation very carefully. If the WNBA folds, those leagues suddenly become the premier destinations for women's basketball talent. They're already preparing contract offers for American players who might find themselves without a domestic league to play in. The irony is that WNBA players who are demanding American salaries might end up playing overseas for significantly less money if they succeed in destroying their own league. They're potentially negotiating themselves into exactly the situation they're trying to avoid. So here's my final question, and this one's going to hurt. What if the WNBA players get everything they want? What if the owners cave completely, agree to revenue sharing, and structure the deal exactly how the players are demanding? What happens when the financial losses become so massive that even the NBA can't justify the subsidy anymore? What happens when the next economic downturn hits, and the owners are hemorrhaging money on both their profitable and unprofitable franchises? The players might win this battle and lose the war, achieving their perfect contract just in time to watch the league collapse under the weight of financial reality. Sometimes getting everything you ask for is the worst thing that can happen to you, and the WNBA players might be about to learn that lesson the hard way. January 9th isn't just a deadline, it's potentially the end of an era, and the people with the most to lose are the ones holding the dynamite.